Welcome back, everybody, to another Digital Gate Studios production. Basil, you had to be here with me.
Yeah, well, this is one we've been working on back and forth for,
Probably since we met.
Since we, yeah, well, that
essentially,
since at least the in-person regional was announced.
Right. So now, this is going to be my new take on UlforceVeedramon, and it's new because it's one of the first videos that we put out for BT13, and that's still a fun way to play the deck, guys. Still very fun. It's got some cheeky strategies, but
couple one-ofs.
We want to win.
Yeah,
we want to go to we want to go to regionals and we want to compete. And we've been testing the crap out of this with a lot of the sweaty meta stuff, and this is kind of what I came up with. And I think this is a really consistent way to play the deck. With a couple caveats.
I think Ulforce is one of those decks that it didn't like the Ulforce for the Royal Knights deck doesn't really fit with the strategy, but it's one of those decks that because it didn't get support, people aren't playing it, but it's still very, very strong.
Yeah. And like you said, the new Ulforce doesn't really fit in this because this is more of an OTK strategy. And you'll see that this is a very full aggro, all gas kind of way to play the deck. And I'll show you some strategies, some things, a little bit of room in the deck. You can switch some cards out at the end. So let's just kick it in to gear. So we're going to start with the eggs. Went down to 4 eggs. The Demi V is good for the plus 1k, but also kind of gets rid of the consistency of the deck because when you are going for your OTK turn, you want to draw a lot of cards. You want to draw a lot of Tamers specifically to keep that Ulforce going as long as you can. So Wanyumon obviously just replaced the old Demi V with the jamming, so it also kind of made that Vmon not really relevant in this set. So Wanyumon is just the new way to...
Best draw egg in blue.
Absolutely. And they're going to have to do a lot to power creep
that
out.
For sure.
All right. And then we play, of course, the 4 of the BT11 Vmon. Best searcher in the deck. Searches any Veedramon or any... and a Tamer. So you get 2 cards out of it. So your hand size just keeps increasing with this deck, so which is nice. Anytime you can net 1 card off of it, it's really helpful. It is worth noting when you're playing this deck, this will not draw you another Vmon. So there are a lot of tricky turn 1s with this card, where if it's your only rookie, you kind of have to weigh, do I start my stack, or do I play it and grab 2 cards? I typically will always digivolve this if this is my only rookie in hand, instead of just dropping it for 3 and hoping I draw another rookie, because a lot of times you don't, and you get kind of burnt.
This card is so good, it's finding its way into Mirage.
All right, and then we play 4 of the BT1, or EX1, I'm sorry, not BT1, EX1. Vmon. This one just accelerates your turn. When you unsuspend once per turn, gain a memory, very strong. It's only during your main phase, but, that's what we do.
It's almost always going to be on the main phase.
Right, so those are kind of the mandatory 4-ofs, I think, in the deck. And I've seen a lot of people go back and forth over the next 3, because I think there's 11 spots for rookies in this deck, especially with mulligans. And so it's kind of your choice what you prefer for the last 3. I've seen people choose Madokis. Very interesting choice. I don't think it's right in this format just because things kill those, like you said in a prior podcast, by accident.
Yeah.
I mean, Shine Gray just annihilates them.
Sneeze on a Madoki and it'll die.
Absolutely. And so Royal Knights will just pop them. I mean, everything is meant in those decks to keep them doing what they're doing, which means getting rid of your floodgates. So
maybe if blue had a play cost floodgate.
Yeah, but they don't. So we're running really hard into the OTK, draw a lot of cards, get all the pieces you need in one turn, and just keep swinging and winning. So with that said, you're going to be like, oh, you're playing the starter deck Vmon, right? No. The warping in this version of the deck, this isn't a control style of the deck. This is a full aggro, full gas. So I want that guaranteed card draw instead of the if you have less than 7, draw 1. So we go with the BT2. I like this better. I've tried the other one. The warping almost never comes up. It doesn't really help you as much as you would think, because typically it'll either pass turn or you're going to hard play a Vmon and then warp on it, and then you can't even swing with it. So this is just more consistent to the strategy of let's build a giant stack in raising, pull it out when it's ready, suspend it, and then Ulforce, and then go.
Yeah.
Right?
You'd think the warp would be stronger this format, especially with the Royal Knights hard playing level 6s. But honestly, your Royal Knights matchup, you're already bouncing the Royal Knights as they play them. So I think sticking with this makes sense.
Yeah. And then we run 4. We're getting into our level 4s now. This is the best level 4 in the deck. I mean, everything that they gave us in BT11 is just 4, 4, 4, and 4. You know, this one I've learned a lot to use differently. This one is also very good to kind of prematurely promote if you have another rookie and another level 4 in hand, and you need to get card draw or tamers on the board. Having this on top of the BT11 Vmon out in your battle area is very strong because you can drop your V-Tamers for 1 and draw a card, and then suspend the V-Tamer and draw another card for 1 or for nothing. So the whole thing nets you 2 cards. So, and a Tamer on board, which you know is really
huge.
Next, we're going. This was not in my prior list. We're back to the Veedramon Zero. I know a lot of people are being like, "Why are you back to that? That was like the fill-in
because
spot."
we finally got a foil version.
We did get a foil version. This card is very good in specific matchups. Security control, it's very strong. It saves you from the Avenge Kid play. And it's particularly good against Royal Knights because it really slows down that Gallantmon play because you're able to recycle 3 cards at a time on swing. So it's very good.
And it's not once per turn, right?
It is not once per turn.
Yeah.
So you can draw multiple cards. So if you have like this Vmon, the Wanyamon, and this, you can swing and draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
You know, it's very strong. Also, it's searchable. Everything is searchable by stuff. So really good. And then we run 2. We kept the 2 gold Vs because this card has saved me more times than it's cost me not having a level 4 inheritable. Because a lot of times you are hard playing this Vmon and it's just kind of left out there. It's either a 1K swing or you can use it to kind of control your board a little bit better. It'll pop a 2K, so you can pop a floodgate, and then also it'll lock down a 6K. So you can pretty much lock down an 8K if you need to.
I was about to say you can combo the 2 effects together, and 8 notable 8Ks, things like Metal Gray or some other cross heart level 4s or 5s you can knock down.
Yep. And it's Armor Purge, which is really nice because you can kind of get an extra swing out of your Vmon if you do want to Digivolve for 2 and then just swing. And like I said, Digivolve's for 2 on any of our Vmons, so really strong. Now we're getting into the last of our level 4s. We play 2 Lanamons for game. Once again, OTK strategy. You gain a whole bunch of memory when you are swinging with that Ulforce and then suspending. A lot of times when you are about to do your combo to win, you end up at like 6 or 7 memory. So you have plenty of memory to double Lanamon, or a lot of times you're going to want to Lanamon, go into one of our level 5s, suspend it, and then you can put another Ulforce on top. There's a whole bunch of strategies you can do with the Lanamon. It really opens up what you can do on your final OTK turn.
And with the Tamer lineup, you can also go from Lanamon to another Ulforce pretty consistently.
Yeah. And then we're going to get into our level 5s. Once again, BT11, mandatory 4 of. This one shocks people when they haven't played against Ulforce, how strong it is. Did you suspend it, and then they start to check their security, and you're like, wait.
No, I'm searching.
No. I'm searching. I'm grabbing 3 arenas. Or I'm grabbing. It usually nets you about 2 cards, which is really nice.
There's a lot of Tamers in the deck. We'll get into that in a bit.
The important part is that it suspends itself without risking its life.
Yes.
You know? So it's ridiculously strong. And then the inheritable activates the arenas, so you can use arenas on play without actually playing them on the following turn if you survive. So very good. And then the only other safe way to swing, essentially, is with jamming. So we run 2 of the starter deck Arrow Vs. This one, I know, you can argue to go up to 3 of with the next 2 level 5s, but, I mean, it's really strong. Swings with jamming, and then it gives you that security attack +1, because you typically always have 8 or more cards in hand when you are on your OTK turn. It's really good. You can mess with it at 3. I don't think it's going to change the deck that much, but I really like, and this is something that we've been experimenting with, especially in this format, is the Arrow Veedramon from BT2. So the OG.
Yeah, it's a throwback.
It's a throwback, but man, does it save you a lot of time, or a lot of games. Mostly because, like I said, you're at 6 or 7 memory a lot of times. We do run boosts, so you can Digivolve for 2 with the Lanamon. You can tuck something under it, give it jamming, swing, Digivolve for 3, this will unsuspend any Digimon on the board. So if you have
not
that
just itself.
Yeah, if you have that Ulforce, it's out of gas because it's evaded too many times, or you're just out of Tamers to either suspend or play. This will unsuspend you again, which will save you essentially the game. And if this is part of your main stack, you're going to have jamming, which is super important in this format because you're typically only swinging at 11 or 12k. But this will give you jamming, so it'll help you in that Royal Knights matchup, which was very, very terrifying for this deck because you're always just swinging, and then it'll just be an automatic evade, so you lose half of your attacks, essentially. Then we're getting into the meat of the deck. Ulforce. We know it. We love it. This isn't going anywhere. This is what we like. 4 of the BT11 Ulforce. So not much to say about that. That's not gonna shock anyone. And then we do have 2 of the Ulforce X. This card, actually, the more you play with this card, the more you actually kind of want to put it to 3, especially in matches like where they're only left with one thing on the board anyways, like the Shine Gray matchup. This is super strong,
right?
Because those Marcuses they don't have a level anyways, and 2, they retreat back to the Tamer as a Tamer at the end of the turn. So this one doesn't need anything to send something back. It just has to unsuspend on your main phase. Or unsuspend. As soon as it unsuspends, it just bounces something.
The Ulforce bounces once per turn, but then when you go into X, you can do it one more time, obviously.
Yeah. And it's pretty much just clears whatever's left on the board that this Ulforce didn't take care of already.
It's also worth noting that the X antibody's all turns, whereas the Ulforce is not.
Yes. So the Rena can unsuspend this, and it'll let you block as many Renas as you have, is as many times as you can block +1, essentially.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Also, it'll unsuspend when it evades if you have Renas on the board, which is very strong. And then let's jump into kind of what makes this, with the Lanimons, really an OTK deck, and that is 1 Blitz Omni.
Yeah.
So it is.
We've tried a lot of things in this slot.
Pretty much every Omnimon in the game that'll go on blue. But I think just the oppressiveness of this deck, and once that door is open for you to start swinging, is your door to just win. Yeah. So you want everything under the sun that's going to let you do that. And like I said, the Ulforce X, Digivolves for 1, unsuspends, and then if you have Renas on the board that are still left unsuspended, you don't need Tamers to unsuspend the Ulforce X. You just need to suspend the Rena to do it. So tons of swings, final blows right here.
Yeah, well, if you people who have played this deck before know that if you have a Arrow V in Raising, the BT11 one, you know you're ready for a big turn. But if they have 5 full security, you probably aren't going to punch through all of that turn. Right. But that Blitz Omni can be that deciding factor.
That linchpin, yeah. Because a lot of times your opponent will expect you to have a hybrid in this deck, for sure.
But now you have hybrid and Blitz for game.
Yeah. And then we're running 4 Renas. She lets the deck do all the things that it do. Very strong. Like I said, the pairing with Ulforce X is something that I didn't understand the synergy of how good that is until I played this deck a million times. But once you experience that and your opponent's turn, these are very, very strong, like we talked about earlier. I wish I could put this at 4, but I had to make room for other things. We're running 3 of the V-Tamer. Probably one of the strongest, cheapest Tamers in the game for a specific deck. Just the generic ability to draw you a card or make your it lets you kind of really customize how you play, because I think this is what makes the deck really versatile as far as what you're playing against, because you either need a different piece or you need to make your bodies bigger, and this for 2 lets you do that, and it gives you another Tamer on board, which obviously lets you bounce a higher level for cheap. So.
And if we do not have jamming, 13 and 14K is actually very important to get to because of Royal Knights and a lot of level 6s in decks
Shine
these
Grays,
days.
yeah. Let's get into some Tamers after that one. Let's get into the
more flexy spots.
The more flexy Tamers. Just for this format specifically, this card has came in clutch for me. That's why I went to 2. Soren Joes. So comes in very clutch, especially obviously if you guys are thinking about Royal Knights. It's very strong. They typically have an Omekamon on board, or a Floodgate, or a Magnamon, whatever they left you with, whatever Royal Knight you want to stare at. This is going to net you 2 more memory. It's also I found good against Shine Gray, because a lot of times Shine Gray players will do their Shine Gray turn, and then they'll end their turn with like an Agu to search and pass turn. So it really kind of makes your opponent rethink the order in which they're doing things. And also, the X antibody option just isn't as prevalent anymore as it was. So being able to strip a ton of sources off of a Machine-Dramon, or strip sources off of not the sleep mode, but other Belphemon stuff if they weren't able to sleep mode the turn before, it's just really good.
For all the same reasons Sora is good, it's the same reason Sora and Joe is good this format.
Yep. Down to 1. Davis, because this card,
Maniac.
I would think that there should be some lore in the Digimon where this card hates this card because Davis ruins your arenas because you just bottom deck all your arenas with the Davis. So I went down to 1 because with these guys and then the blue boosts and a couple of the other Tamers, going to 3 is not as prevalent in this deck because you're kind of already there. You can do a lot of things to gain memory. You can play Tamers for cheap with some of the inheritables. He's still good to have. It's just very situational to drop him when you have your pieces already and you just need the arena. You just got to be kind of more strategic about what you do with the Davis. We do run 1, Matt and Sora. This is good. More net memory gain. It bounces a level 3. So that's kind of, if you're wondering why I don't run that that Veedramon that does that, it's because there's a Tamer that already does it. Also, these will end up bouncing almost their entire board by themselves.
Sure.
So very good. Draws you a card. It's fun. Now we're going to go into Blue Boost. I know, I had to pick that artwork. It's got Veemon on it.
It's got Veemon.
Come on.
That's synergy.
I had left this out for Hammer Sparks in my last video because I really did like that. I wish I could find room for 2 Hammer Sparks in this, but being able to find the pieces you need is very important in this deck. It's very, very situational that this is going to be used when you don't have all your pieces or when you have all your pieces, but just beware, these 3 cards are not good for arena.
Search is a lot worse than raw draw in this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking for here is just make sure that you already have arena or 2 on play or in your hand before you start trying to dig for your final pieces. And also worth noting with the Ulforce X and the Ulforce, sometimes it's worth it not to be greedy and try and get them both. Like sometimes if you just pull the Ulforce X, you're still good to go. Like especially in this format where typically like you got some big stacks on the board and you want to clear them, just go, just do it. Because Rena will still unsuspend it. You don't have to have Tamers to do it. And now my favorite card in the deck. It's going to be my card of the week. High Speed Plug-in. And I remember when I showed this to you, you're like, that could be good. It's kind of gimmicky, and I agree that it's kind of gimmicky. But you got to think about your matchups with this deck. You got to think about one specifically, and that's War Greymon. Big, giant blocker, menace, prevents bouncing.
24K.
Yeah. This card has saved me so many games. Even against Machine-Dramon, it's good. I mean, they can still redirect with the Analog Man, but being unblockable and jamming, and you're swinging with the same stack over and over and over and over again. So you only need to do this on your OTK turn.
Yes.
Essentially. And it doesn't matter if you go into your Ulforce X, eventually go into your Omnimon, it still retains that all the way through. And like we talked about earlier, jamming is super, super important on your OTK turn.
Huge bodies this format.
The more you have to use your evade, the less swings you have. So this lets you just get all your checks through and hope you don't hit something that's going to bottom deck you or send you to security.
Yes.
Aside from that, there's not a lot that they can do. Like DP reduction is still scary. That's still there. But it's not as scary when you have jamming.
Right.
Because if you get Marcus...
You're swinging with 2K, but it's a jamming 2K.
How many times do you swing and hit a Marcus and then it reduces you by 3K? Who cares?
Yeah,
you're 9K jamming. We're still getting through all your stuff. So... This is the deck, guys.
But Jesse,
yes.
I have the same question that our fans have right now.
Okay.
What happens when our opponent plays Quartzmon?
Oh, I hate that card. Okay, so I knew this was going to come up. We talked about it. Quartzmon is a menace for this specifically. I built this because we haven't been seeing Quartzmon as much at our locals. Hunter's still doing well in a regional format. It's just not as prevalent or as popular. Neither is Bloomlord or Hydra. If you do see those in your matchups, quite a bit or consistently at your locals, there are a couple flex spots in this deck. The flex spots I've found are the Blitz Omni, because it is a finisher. You can still get plenty of checks off with the Ulforce. So I think this is a flex spot, and the second Landamon is your flex spot. And there are a couple options. Honestly, blue has probably the worst removal in the game.
True.
So we have a few different options. If you want to go the more control method. So we have Great Maelstrom. So this would cost 9. This is what I would prefer. I think this is what goes in with some further testing. If we start to see Quartzmon more, or if I start to see it top at more regionals, I'll probably take 2 of these out and put in 2 Great Maelstorms. It bottom decks.
Yeah,
So,
not to hand.
not to hand. And it costs 9, but you do have the stipulation where you can tuck a Digimon on field underneath another one to make it cost 6. Still gives your opponent quite a bit of memory, but it does remove the threat from the board.
Yes.
Still, it's really just for that Quartzmon matchup. Essentially, you can kind of take care of almost anything else, or anything else might have protection from this. So
Yes.
very tricky. Your other option is Full Moon Meteor Impact. This is like your Cocytus Breath for cheaper, essentially.
Yes.
If they have 8 cards in hand, it will only cost 6. This just returns a card to hand. But once your opponent is pretty keen to how good Quartzmon is against Ulforce, they'll probably just hard drop it for 9 on a rookie with save, right back out of their hand, and say, deal with it. So, okay, that's an option. And then we have Sorai. Sorai is not going to stop Quartzmon, but it is good in the format. I think if you guys have checked out any of Jeff's Blue Flare videos, gameplay videos, this has done spades for him. It's good in the deck. It's good against Royal Knights. If you really need to beef your deck up against Royal Knights even more, I would recommend Sorai, because it really stops them for a turn. And then Basil's card. Ice Wall. Ice Wall's good. I think Ice Wall would go in a more control version of this deck, because there is a method in which you can build this deck and actually replace it with the new Ulforce stuff. Which is more control. It's more trash sources. It's more return stuff to hand.
For every Tamer, trash 2 sources, and then mount something.
So you could run that package in a more defensive package, but this is an OTK deck, essentially. So Ice Wall is good. I know you would put it in this deck somewhere if you were playing this deck.
True.
It is your...
I think it's a good card.
I think it's a great card, too. I just want to win, and I want to win fast.
Yeah.
So
who cares what they do?
Who cares what they do? Exactly.
I
So...
like it.
Those are my kind of flex cards for this deck if you want to experiment with those. This is it, guys. I really enjoy this. I've had a lot of success with it. It's getting more and more consistent and feels more and more, just flows more and more all the time I play it. So anything else from Mr. Basil?
Just because a deck was printed in BT11 doesn't mean it's not good in BT13.
I agree. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll do some more updates. I know Basil's got some updates for his decks coming.
Yeah, we've got more regionals sort of stuff coming.
Yeah. So stay tuned and check out the gameplay videos. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.